Hey, welcome to Code Freedom. This is episode 245. I'm really excited. We have a special guest on today. This is Christal Allen-Harrahill. She is doing some incredible things. She's a life and a marriage coach. And I love the fact that she gives a lot of advice and coaching as it relates to marriage, in relation to communication. And I think that's so important because oftentimes as a couple, we often don't always know how to communicate with each other. When
Mhm.
conflict comes up, we often don't know how to manage that conflict. And it's inevitable that conflict is going to come up. So we have to
Yes.
have the tools to know how to navigate that. So welcome to the show, Christal. Hey, Christal, how are you?
I'm really well, Eddie. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, awesome. So thank you for being here. And first off, tell us how you even got into this, this space of being a coach in terms of course, life coaching, but also marriage coaching as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. You know, it Marriage coaching in particular really came from me needing this work myself. So you know how the saying goes, sometimes you're your first client, and that really was the case for me getting into marriage coaching. But first, as a coach, I was a coach for many years as a business coach, and I had a very small niche as a real estate transaction coordinator, and I would teach like other stay-at-home moms how to start their business from home and that type of thing. And I knew that that wasn't the business that I was going to ultimately end up in one day. And I decided to join this program where I could learn more about life coaching. And after being in that program for a little bit, I decided to get certified. So I went through a 6-month certification process, and that really changed everything for me. So when I certified from that program, that's when I made the switch from business coach to marriage coach. And divorce is a part of my story. So I had a divorce many years ago. I took some time off, definitely in between getting out there and dating again. And I told myself that I really wanted to be intentional when it was time to date again. And of course, have the second marriage stick, right? And so, the work that I did in that life coaching certification program was so powerful because it actually allowed me to see where I needed to take accountability, right, for how I was showing up. And it also allowed me to see some of the behaviors and habits and defaults that I was engaging with even in my second marriage, which is my current marriage. This year is our 10-year anniversary, actually. And so, yeah, communication in particular is so important because no matter what the topic is, kids, in-laws, finances, intimacy, making dental appointments, like all of that stuff takes communication between a couple. And so I knew that this was like a foundational topic that we all needed help with. And so many of us are not taught this. We're either not taught it or we don't have an example of it growing up of what like healthy communication can look like between a married couple. And so once I really felt like I had done the work on myself, I continued to learn a little bit more. And then I put myself out there so that way I could help others.
Wow, good stuff. I mean, the first person we must always coach is ourselves, right? And
Yes.
it's so powerful that you got it for yourself, and now you can turn around and go help other people with it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think it's so hard for couples to communicate in today's time?
What I see typically is because we don't know why we're showing up the way that we are. And that's why I was really intentional in getting trained the way that I did, because the way that I was trained, it was in something called causal coaching. So that way we look for the root cause. Because if you don't know why, you just keep riding that same loop over and over again. And one of my signature programs in my business is say goodbye to those Groundhog Day fights. And if you think about the movie Groundhog Day, how many of us in relationships, marriages, we end up having those same kind of arguments or disagreements over and over again? It's just the same topic, different day, maybe different year. And so I think many times we don't know why. And so we keep doing it, which makes sense, right? We keep repeating it. And then also it's, we haven't been healed from maybe situations in the past that we are sometimes actually even unknowingly and very much even unintentionally bringing into our current relationship. So you can only move so far into the future holding on to emotional states from the past.
Wow, it's interesting that you say that because we talk about that on the podcast a lot. How we're brought up a certain way, and we have these
Yeah.
emotional needs that we need to have, and
Yeah.
when we don't get them, we start looking for it in our partner, and
Yes.
and then we have these triggers. So we have
Yes.
these triggers, and sometimes we're triggered by certain things, and we don't express why we're triggered. So it's like both parties are fighting against each other and don't even know why they're fighting, but these
So
triggers
true.
that are not even spoken. And this is one reason why I wanted to have you on the show, because I think it's
Yeah.
such an important topic to talk about. Anything you want to say around that in terms of the triggers and the emotional needs of being of as a child and having those
Yeah.
things missed?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up because it actually speaks to the collaboration that I truly believe in between therapists and life coaches. So for those in your audience who may not be as familiar maybe with life coaching, that really is taking you from where you are right now to where you want to go. And sometimes that healing that many of us may need, and I'm specifically kind of speaking towards trauma, um, that I always refer clients to a licensed therapist who can help them unearth and really heal through that trauma, because sometimes that is what we need before we can just kind of move forward. And I think that that's the beautiful collaboration between the two industries. And so I don't see them competing at all. And yeah, many times, like you said, in our childhood, if we have some unresolved situations or, like you said, needs that weren't being met, that's so true that we end up looking, attracting actually. Sometimes we'll say we want something, but then we'll actually be attracting exactly what you said, which is what we don't want, but we don't know any better. And sometimes when we are triggered, it goes back to how I answered the earlier question. We don't even know why we're triggered. We just know that we just feel an influx of, resentment or anger or whatever that negative emotion is. And we typically, haven't learned how to tap into what that is and then also diffuse the conversation. So that way you can actually sit down with your partner and both of you be heard. And when I work with couples, because sometimes I work with just the woman and sometimes I also work with the couples. My goal, it really is that at the end, on the other side of that conflict or that conversation, that you actually end up becoming closer instead of further apart, which is, I know I've experienced, not having that result after an argument in my relationships. And so that's available to people. And I think if we don't know how, then, sometimes we end up doing the same thing.
I remember being a broke college student and wanting to be financially free, wanting to really have a life of freedom, but I just didn't know how. I didn't have any mentorship, any coaching, any guidance, didn't even know what kind of business to start. But I found something, a vehicle that had a proven system, had mentors and coaches, had all the resources and everything that I needed to really build a successful business with little overhead, that I could work from home, I could do part-time, and really do it in my own time. And so if you're looking for a vehicle like that and you'd like to give it a shot, hey, reach out to me, let's connect. Go to eddiebales.com, or you can go down in the description below and you can click on that link. I look forward to connecting with you, and hey, we've already helped tons of other people and we look forward to helping you on your journey to freedom as well. Yeah, definitely. Is there maybe one or two tools that you can give us today that we could use in
Yeah.
terms of having better communication?
Yeah, no, I really love this question. So one thing that I really teach my clients to do is to get curious. So, and this is what I mean by this, get curious with yourself as well as with your partner. So when your partner says something to you, many times, like here, let me give you an example. And this is a true example that I use sometimes. Um, my my husband, and this is something we've talked about, he used to interrupt a lot, right? And it's so funny because I would get so frustrated and I would just be like, you're not even letting me finish. Like you're already jumping in. And I remember telling myself, he always interrupts me. And that statement sounds not too bad. And it even kind of sounds true with how I just set the situation up for you. But if you really pick it apart, it's not true. And it's actually because it wasn't true that he interrupts all the time, right? It was some of the time. And because of my history with that theme in our relationship, that topic was very charged for me. So it can be sometimes a very innocent thought that you think you're having about a situation. But if you look at the trajectory that that thought will take you, like if I'm telling myself that he always interrupts, right, I may feel unheard. Then I may stop sharing. Then I may remind myself of all the other times that he interrupted me or, didn't listen according to my experience, that type of thing. And what's important to understand is that it's not to invalidate that experience, but it's also a place for you to check in and ask, do I want to lead with that? If I want this situation to turn around in our relationship, is that the thought that I want to lead with? And so I think just being really curious with yourself about how you think, right, about your partner and what they're doing and what they're not doing can be a really, really simple first step. And the other thing that I suggest is journaling. And you don't have to become like this master journaler. You don't have to have a 5 a.m. morning where you sit and do 5 pages. I want you to make it easy for your life. And maybe it is, 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, or maybe you want to do it to wrap up your day, but get in the habit of just like having a daily hygiene of your thoughts. And what I mean by that is getting them out of your head. Our brains are not storage facilities, right? They're not meant to be. So it's almost like allow those thoughts to kind of get out on paper. And what you'll find is that sometimes something that seems so big in your head, once you get it like on black and white and you maybe think about it a little bit more, it's not so big anymore. And sometimes it will still feel big. And now you have a chance to think of it more critically, maybe to think of it more factually, because sometimes, like that example that I gave, there was a lot of story include surrounding the facts, right? And so I think just allowing yourself to tap into the true facts of what's going on can be really, really helpful.
Wow, that's so good. That's so good. And it's
Yeah.
very introspective because we could
Yes.
often project things
Mhm.
onto our partner instead of just looking at ourselves.
Yes.
I'm really big on journaling myself. Uh,
Okay.
so it's so important because like
Yeah.
sometimes we just got stuff we need to get off our chest and sometimes
Yeah.
share it with anybody. So just to be able to at least put it on paper and be able to dissect our thoughts, I think
Yes.
is important. Yeah.
Yes, I like that. I'm happy to hear that you journal and that's a habit that, you connect with because it really is so powerful. And you know what's interesting too, and Eddie, you may have experienced this as well. I know sometimes I'll journal things and not even just about my husband, it could be about anyone or any situation. And maybe it was something that I felt like I really wanted to communicate or share. But after having some like personal time, like quiet time with my journal or in the word, I'll be like, you know what? I don't really need to share this. This can stay between me and God or me and the journal or, like this isn't something that I want to bring forward. But there will be times that the answer is yes, you do want to talk about it. But it can be really powerful just to have that conversation with yourself first and get clear on that topic with yourself first before you bring it to your partner. Yeah.
Oftentimes, I'm asked about certain products and things that I use, whether it be for social media content, whether it's exercise equipment that I'm using, or even books that I'm reading. I'll constantly update you if you want to know some of the things that I use. You can go to the Amazon store at the link below, and I'm happy to share some of those resources that have been very helpful and even life changing. Some of the books that I've recommended over the years, I'll put those books in the link, and I'll constantly make sure that I keep that updated for you. So take advantage of it, and I hope you enjoy. Is there like a situation you could think of where you maybe have coached somebody on some things and you saw like a great result as a result of it? I'd love to hear maybe a quick story because
Yeah.
it could be inspiring hearing how you have helped someone else.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So the case study that I have permission to share, and you'll hear me, if you've listened to my podcast or anything like that, you may have heard me share. It was this beautiful woman who came to me, and the way that she described her marriage was dull. Right? They had been together for some time, and she just felt like, she had been evolving. He had been too, also to a certain degree, but she was seeing that interests were different, right? Social desires were different. She was wanting to be just more out there and connecting with even mutual friends that they had between the two of them. And he was kind of doing the opposite a little bit. And so that particular client did a 3-month coaching package with me. And in that 3 months, we really were able to just kind of unpack why she was feeling the need for him to show up in a way that he wasn't, right? And so many times we have, how you have like a manual for your washing machine or your dishwasher. So many times we have manuals for our spouses, and it's how they should be acting, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't do, what they should know about us, even if we don't say it, right? What they should know about us, especially if we've been together for a long time. Like they should just automatically know that, right?
Right.
And so we had to pack all of that. And what ultimately ended up happening with the two of them is they were able to connect on an item that they did when they first met, which was actually dancing. And that was a way for them to reconnect their bond with something that they did when they first started dating. And interestingly enough, nothing actually changed in the other areas. He still wasn't interested in doing that other stuff, but she was able to understand, like, that she could lean on her community for that. She didn't need to look at him to fill all of those roles just because he was her husband. And it really was a beautiful connection that they ended up just kind of recommitting to through like an old interest that they renewed. And then she was still able to get her social needs met by her other friends and family. And so that was a really cool study.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting that you said that because I find that in a lot of couples and a lot of marriages, I don't want to say a lot, but I have noticed a few
Yeah.
where there are expectations or there
Yes.
are there are these expectations that are not communicated.
Yes.
And since we're talking about communication, how do you feel it's important to communicate expectations? Do you think we should
Yeah.
just kind of like expect them to do it, or should we actually say exactly what we feel that we need?
Yeah, I love this question because it is twofold in my eyes. I believe men and women, right, should always communicate the desires that they have in their relationship. However, you can't, I caution you to become outcome obsessed. And this is what I mean. You may say, I want us to start doing this, or whatever the request is. And when we're in relationship with other adults, they may or may not do it, right? And so that is the critical point of what are we making that mean about ourselves, about them, about our relationship, when the answer is no, or they maybe say yes, but then their action doesn't follow through with what they said. Those are the critical moments. But I always advocate for the person in the relationship. You have to communicate your needs. There's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to be prepared to kind of think critically and maybe be prepared to have another conversation, or even just decide within your inner being what you want, where you want to take that, right? Where, because it's easy when they say yes and do it, right? The problem, quote unquote, comes when they don't. So yeah, absolutely.
Right, right. Wow, this is so good. And there's so many things that you kind of unpacked for us today.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you just want to share yourself that you find that just from your experience in coaching that you may want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think that getting support in your relationship is one of the most healthiest, attractive things that anyone can do. And I think sometimes people will think their relationship has to be on the court step, like the steps of the courthouse, right? About to file for divorce to get help. And I want to argue that you can have a pretty good marriage and still benefit so much from getting support. So of course, if the marriage is rocky, then yes. But I think I just want to encourage everyone that even if you feel like we have it pretty good, because I know that that's how I even described my marriage for a really long time. But it's like, why not see if it can get a little bit better, like nothing wrong with that. And so I just want to encourage you, especially in 2024, take no shame in getting support, and also think of the individual benefit that you're going to get. Because yes, you're working on your relationship, but the byproduct is the individual growth that you'll receive, and you will never regret that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I always tell people go before you need to go.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love that. That's
Yep.
good.
And even as a relationship therapist, I love how you brought that up because in our community, it's a stigma around it that we're crazy or we shouldn't go get therapists. But I just think, all of us have some level of, challenge in life that we need
Yeah.
to uncover and get some guidance on it and get some new tools to help us. And otherwise, we stay in this cycle, right?
Amen.
So I really appreciate this. How can our audience connect with you so that in case they want to get some coaching from you or buy any of your products?
Yeah, thank you for that offer. So if you spend time on Instagram, I'm there at Marriage Coach Christal, and my name is spelled Christal, but I know Eddie will have that info in the show notes. And then if you are interested in maybe attending one of my live workshops, you can go to christalallen.com/workshop, and then I'll see you there.
All right, awesome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Eddie.